Have you ever wondered what handcuffs are made of? Or have you ever seen a pair in person? Have you ever been put in any? Have you ever wondered how they were used or how they should be used? Today we're going to talk about it. I've been a correctional employee for the last 15 years. These are pretty much a daily thing for me. I use these every day. I've also been a security skills master instructor for 7 of the 15 years I've been in corrections. So I am a master instructor on how to apply these, how they're used, safe application, things like that. So when we're talking about handcuffs, we're going to talk about some of the three main points here. So the nomenclature of the cuffs, that means the parts of the cuffs. What all is this stuff? What are they made of? How do they work? What makes them work? The next point we're going to talk about is safe application, how to use them, how to apply them to a person, that kind of stuff. And then third, we're going to talk about some of the do's and don'ts of applying cuffs. What should you do? What shouldn't you do? What is a safe application for these things? So jumping right into it, we're going to talk about how they're made, what they're made of. These are stainless steel. These are Peerless brand handcuffs. These are my personal cuffs I carry on a daily basis. I've used these a lot of times. I've had these since I started 15 years ago, and they're obviously still in really good shape. They hold up really well. So anyway, when we're talking about these, this is called the double strand. There's some main parts. This is called the double strand, single strand. You got the housing, and then you got the chain with the swivels. Those are the big parts of the cuffs. That's the body. So when we open them up, you've got the teeth on the double strand. You've got all these little rivets and swivels that hold them together. And inside the housing, you've got a ratcheting mechanism with teeth on it as well. And then you've got extra rivets. You've also got the keyhole. It's on front of both housings. And then you got the double lock. What the double lock does is you push it down. There's a special end on the key. You push it down and it locks it to where this can't move. I don't have a key on me, so I can't really show you. But regardless, so now that you kind of know what they're made of, things like that, the way they work is when you apply them, this ratchets and secures. And obviously, like I said, when you push that double lock in, it won't move. And that's to prevent, picking them, slipping them when they're put on correctly, because if they're put on correctly, they'll be put on tight enough to where you don't have to really worry about anybody slipping them, unless they're double jointed or something like that. But we call this a preload. So you've got 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 teeth sticking out of the double strand here, and that is so when you go to apply them, you just make skin contact and push, and it will actually spin around and it will lock. So you don't have to worry about adjusting them if you're putting them on quickly, like if you're having somebody who's resistive or something like that to you, or being combative, things like that. You can apply them quickly, and then after they're on, then you can adjust them. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. So after they're applied, like I said, you would adjust them to where you want and then double lock them. So talking about safe application. Safe application for these is you don't want to apply them too tight. You don't want to apply them in a way that it restricts blood flow. You don't want to apply them on somebody's neck. That's not cool. You want to use them only for the wrists. That's what these are for. That's what they need to be used on. And our kind of rule of thumb is you make skin contact with them, but they're not wanting to depress the skin. You don't want them to leave marks. You don't want their hands turning blue. You don't want stuff like that, because that creates other issues. It could create issues for them medically, and it could create issues for you legally if you work in this profession and you're using handcuffs and things like that. So now moving on to some of the do's and don'ts. We've already covered some of them. So when you're applying them, you want to make sure, so some of the do's, you want to make sure that they're applied correctly. You want to make sure that, you know, it's applied tight enough for safety, your safety, their safety, so they can't get out of them. But you want to make sure that they still have enough room to where they can have good circulation. Their hands aren't turning blue, things like that. You do always want to make sure you double lock these things. A lot of people, especially in my line of work, they get complacent. They don't want to mess with the double locks because it's just an extra step, and honestly it only takes a few seconds. But it also creates it to where they can't pinch them down on themselves. You won't accidentally pinch them down on them. And then it also makes it to where they are harder to pick. Because if you have a thin piece of metal, these are really easy to get open if you know what you're doing. And they're not double locked. And then some of the don'ts. Don't apply them too tight, obviously. You know, you don't want to leave somebody unattended if they're restrained. You always want to stay with them. That's really important. And just, you know, don't get complacent. Always double lock them. Don't apply them super loose to where they can slip them, because you never know what's going to happen. That's what these are for. And then lastly, don't use them for anything other than their intended purpose. That's just, you know, well, you shouldn't, because you can get in a lot of trouble. Somebody could get hurt, things like that. So after going all through that, we went over, you know, how they're made, what they're made of, the parts, how to properly apply them, and then we also, you know, talked about some of the do's and don'ts. So hopefully you guys have a better understanding of how these things work. And yeah, that's it.